John Heerema is CEO of Big Life Global. Now, their mission for the last 20 years, reach lost souls by shining Christ's light into the world's darkest places. Just one of those places is Afghanistan, where a dire situation is unfolding as the Taliban continue to tighten their control over the country and persecute, even murder Christian believers. Please welcome to the show a dear friend, John Heerema of Big Life. John, good to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I love the history of the organization. You were a successful business guy, and somebody gave you a book that said, don't live a little life, and it changed your life.
Right.
So you just walked away from a successful business career and started this Christian organization.
Yeah, it's actually about, North Africa, Middle East, Central Asia, 2/3 of the world's population. 97% of the least evangelized people in the world, less than 5% of missions work, less than 2% of missions dollars. And, as a businessman, that made no sense to me. Yeah. And there was a question in the book. It said, are you leading a little life in your own little world? Or are you willing to lead a big life with big kingdom impact? My wife, Kathy, and I just realized that it was all about us. And we had to make ourselves available.
Chuck Colson was a big influence on you. You were close friends with Chuck. And I know that his influence helped to launch Big Life and give it a world vision for reaching people.
Well, we're a bunch of nobodies. And when Chuck wrapped his arms around Big Life, it gave us instant credibility. And people started asking questions. And then he also introduced us to you, who helped us raise awareness quite a bit over the last 15 years it's been now. So
I've loved what you do, John. And I've never heard of anyone doing quite what you do. You go into places like Iran. You start working with kids just playing basketball and build relationships that ultimately lead into presentation of the gospel.
We empower believers worldwide to reach and disciple their own people. Who's the best people to reach Pakistan? It's Pakistanis.
Yeah.
They know the language, they know the culture, they don't get homesick. But over the last couple of years, we realized when things get really difficult, when everybody else is running away, the locals run towards the danger because they're passionate about their own people.
Mm. And that's the difference between, a traditional mission organization where missionaries from, let's say, the U.S., and it's wonderful they do, but they go into an area, they don't know the language, they don't know the people, they're foreigners. You train those folks who already are there, but the most remarkable thing is you're doing work in maybe one of the darkest places on earth, Afghanistan. How did you even get into the country to start?
We actually started in that part of the world in Pakistan, and many of our guys now were former extremists. And when they became believers, they had a passion to reach Taliban or Al-Qaeda. One of our main guys now is a former Al-Qaeda leader who's the greatest disciple maker I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
But, it went across the country borders and it started in Afghanistan. And, it's been some of our fastest growing areas for the last 10 years.
But John, these people are risking their lives when they once were Al-Qaeda or Taliban, and then they come to Jesus. They start telling their friends and family about it. That puts them in harm's way.
There's a huge risk. We've lost 15 of our leaders even in the last few weeks. Oh. As difficult as that is, it's usually a family member who steps in and says, we're not going to let that murder be in vain. Mm-hmm. We're not going to let the enemy win. And they step up and the Lord uses them to raise it to a new level. It's very difficult, but Scripture tells us, church grows through persecution.
How do you get your initial contacts in a place like Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, these tough places?
Yeah, we typically go in and look for that Luke 10 person of peace. We're looking for that person who has influence over others, who the Lord's already stirring in. And then we use Jesus' strategy, which is pour into the few. Our goal is to get to multiplication to the 4th, 5th, 6th generation, but we start pouring into the few, and we feel like if we worry about the depth, the Lord's going to take care of the breadth. And I think when we first met, we were serving in 13 countries, and now the Lord's allowed us to grow into 160 countries just by focusing on the few. So,
what can people do to be part of Big Life? Because you're not asking people to go and spend the next 12 years serving on a mission field per se. So how do people help you get this into these very dark and tough places?
Yeah, obviously it's very dangerous and very difficult for our people. So prayer is number one. Always need more prayer. There's ways to sign up for the prayer email on our webpage. But we were able to relocate over 50,000 Afghans once the country fell a year and a half ago.
50,000.
That cost about $5 million, which wasn't in our budget, but it cost $5 million. Now, there's over 8,000 underground believers in Afghanistan that are being targeted, but the costs have been gouged so much. It's almost the same price for 8,000 it was for over 50,000. So obviously, financially, there's a huge burden there too that people can get involved in.
John, from the very first time I ever met you and heard, Chuck Colson was the one who told me about what you were doing. And, I was just stunned by the scope of it, and I still am. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate you sharing Big Life with us here. For our audience, if you want to learn more about the work that Big Life is doing all over the world, and I didn't realize there were that many countries they're working in now, we have the link set up, as always, at Huckabee.tv, and I hope you'll check it out and be a part of Big Life.